Sandy Noble, and I'm here to tell you the story of Dr. Varina Desmarias. The story was written by Eloise Monk, and each time Varina delivered a baby, she considered that baby her baby. And Eloise is one of her babies. And I shared a driveway with Varina for 20 years. Varina Desmarias, MD. Grundy Center has its own pioneer, native daughter Varina Desmarias. She graduated from the University of Iowa College of Medicine in 1940 and returned to her hometown to open her medical practice in 1941. There were few female doctors at the time and even fewer with their own solo practice. Varina grew up in Grundy Center, the daughter of John Desmarias and Maud Cowie Desmarias. Her grandfather, Anthony, was a land pioneer, moving to Grundy County from Illinois in 1872. Varina graduated in 1933 from Grundy Center High School. In high school, she played hockey, basketball, and tennis for 4 years, participated in band and orchestra, and belonged to various school clubs. One club was the French Circle, where only French was spoken. She was also active in drama and vocal music. Her classmates elected her the most representative high school girl. The citation states, she is completing a career of unusual activity in which she has been a leader in every phase of school affairs. As captain of basketball and editor-in-chief of the Annual, she has carried much responsibility. Advanced scholarship as well as leadership brought her election to the Honor Society in her junior year. Her indomitable spirit, keen humor, and fine sportsmanship have contributed largely to her popularity. John and Maud Desmarias were strong believers in education and actually sold a farm to finance the college educations of their daughters Varina and her older sister Lillian. Varina attended the University of Iowa, where she continued her interest in athletics, participating in the Women's Athletic Association. She graduated as a member of Phi Beta Kappa Honor Society with a degree in chemistry and went on to the University of Iowa College of Medicine, where she graduated with her MD in 1940. After graduation and completion of internship, Varina returned to Grundy Center to practice medicine and opened an office at 606.5 G Avenue. It is unknown how much it cost to equip her office. Dorothy Cruz Clark remembers Varina saying that the scale used to weigh babies cost $20. In 2016, that would be about $340. And the scale was just a minor piece of equipment for her medical practice. Varina had 2 maiden aunts who helped her finance the equipment. Shortly after setting up her solo practice, Varina received a letter from Uncle Sam directing her to report to the military for duty. The Army needed doctors for the war effort. Varina wrote back that she was ready to do her part to help out, but wondered if they knew if she was a female. They quickly withdrew the request for her services. Being a single female doctor probably had more problems associated with it than Varina shared. On more than one occasion, Manley Smith, the druggist across the street, came to her rescue, sometimes with Sheriff Maminga joining him, when men would come up the stairs to her office with questionable intent. Varina was always gratified for Manley's help. In the early 1970s, Eloise Moore Monk remembers attending the 4th of July fireworks at Holland without a town guest. A young visitor fell from the roof of the Monk car and was badly cut on the face. Late in the evening, they drove the child to Varina's house. That was before the ER was staffed around the clock, and they pounded on the door with no response. Eloise then went around to the side of the house and yelled, "Varina, we have an injured child." The response came back, "Meet me at the emergency room." The child was stitched up, but in the process, Varina commented, "I thought it was someone wanting drugs, and I would not have answered if you hadn't called me by my first name." It causes one to wonder how many times people did try to obtain drugs from her. As a follow-up on the injured child who lived in Cedar Rapids, her parents were amazed to receive phone calls from Varina to check up on how the child was doing. They also marveled as the child grew that there was minimal facial scarring due to the excellent job Dr. Desmarias had done. In 1963, Varina built the office building at 706 6th Street for her medical practice. All of her patients can relate stories on her billing practices. She truly practiced medicine because she had a passion for it, and she wanted to help people. It was often difficult for her to accept payment, and when pressed, she would ask for or settle on a ridiculously small amount of money. For her, the term solo practice meant exactly that. Except on few occasions, she practiced medicine without a nurse, bookkeeper, or office staff of any kind. One of her real strengths was diagnosis. Time after time, she diagnosed a patient's issues and sent them to the appropriate specialist who would confirm the diagnosis. Her practice extended well beyond the office hours and hospital rounds. Doris Fissler reports that Varina came nightly to the Fissler's home from September through December, the year Doris's husband was ill. She did the same for her good friend Joe Thielen, even driving daily to Rhinebeck when Joe was in the nursing home there. Varina enjoyed traveling, and each summer she and her sister Lillian made a vacation with Joe Thielen and Joe's sister. A large part of the enjoyment of these trips was the preparation. They would study the history of the flora and fauna of the area to be visited. Varina loved to be outdoors and was an expert at identifying wildflowers. Sandy Noble, next-door neighbor and longtime friend, relates stories of picnics with Varina. Varina would call and suggest a picnic, and Sandy, as designated driver, would load up Varina's sister Lillian, and Sandy's mother, and off they'd go. Varina knew all the hidden gems of wayside parks, county parks, municipal parks, and state parks with hiking trails. She would choose one such park for the day's picnic, and each person would pack their own lunch, and they would enjoy several hours in the great outdoors. Varina was a very generous person, a trait she liked to keep hidden. But there are many folks in the community who can attest to her generosity. She often chose children who had a physical handicap or some difficulty in their life, and they were recipients of her gifts. Those individuals would receive a birthday check from her each year. She also supported her belief in education by offering a college scholarship to a local high school graduate, and her sister Lillian endowed a scholarship in their joint names after Varina's death. Varina was a fitness buff before fitness became fashionable. She loved to be outdoors, and hiking a trail in the woods was a favorite means of exercise. But walking the paths of Rose Hill Cemetery worked as well. She would entertain her walking companions with the history of the old families represented by the tombstones. And in the winter, she could be seen vigorously chopping ice, as much for the opportunity to be outside as to be rid of the ice. When she could not be outside in the winter, she walked up and down her basement stairs at home to get her exercise. A group of neighborhood women, all a generation younger than Varina, included her in their occasional gatherings. It gave Varina the freedom to express her silly side when she participated in some of their shenanigans. She had a strong respect for family, even though her immediate family was only her sister Lillian. She sometimes shared holiday meals with the Earl and Joyce Weichel family. Varina lived a simple life compared to the standards of the day. Her home had no air conditioning, she had no television, and in her later years had no radio. Gardening and flowers were a major interest. She was also an astute investor. She developed a considerable portfolio. Her investing started early on in her career, and it became a lifelong hobby. And stamp collecting was another interest she pursued throughout her life. As Varina reached her later years, she reluctantly began asking for help. Her sister Lillian moved from Missouri to live with her when Varina was recuperating from a broken leg. Lillian continued to live with Varina until Varina's death, although as Lillian slipped into dementia, the caregiving roles were reversed. Sandy Noble was the main caregiver as well as friend. Sandy would receive a call whenever there was an emergency, but also assisted with some household chores. Eloise Monk was called on for a variety of things. Some of the transportation help was assigned to Jim and Joanne DeWillius and to Doris Fissler. Dennis Dirks and Jerry Monk and others helped in numerous ways. All of these helpers either were or became close and dear friends of Varina. Sandy Noble tells of entertaining a group of friends for a dinner party one night when she received an SOS from Varina, who was unable to get her sister Lillian out of the bathtub. Sandy left her guest, rescued Lillian, got her dressed in her pajamas and tucked in bed, then returned to her dinner guest. Dr. Desmarias was in declining health in 2009 and died in December of that year. Perhaps a little of her view of life was stated in the class booklet issued by the Grundy Center High School class of 1933 as they celebrated their 50th reunion in 1983. Varina wrote that since hanging out her shingle, she had shared other people's joys and sorrows, and she stated to her classmates, "I hope your children can make this a better world than we did."